Hello, everybody. It is December 2nd. So if you see me in the same shirt, it's my second recording today. I thought I would do journals on this one, because there was, I think, in the session or whatever, John and I were talking about so much other stuff, we didn't really get to the journals, so they get kind of condensed and squished together. So trying to make it all make sense, but I'll just get started. I hope y'all are having had a good by the time you see this, it's gonna be January. So we just had Thanksgiving. So I hope your holidays were good. And here is the journal. Oh, shoot, come on now. Oh, go away, go away, go away, go away, go away, go away. Come on. There it goes. Sorry, I'm trying to get the button to expand this out, and it's right by the Zoom menu thing. Okay, let me move this guy back up here. So I'm looking at you and not over there. So this is May 15th, 24. I kept trying to figure out what part was angry and I couldn't figure it out. Then as I walked into the house, oh, that's right, my husband and I had an argument. Then as I walked into the house and sat down to write this, Janet said, "It's me, it's me." So Janet is furious about being a good friend and treating everyone with dignity and respect and tired of nobody giving her the same in return. She's effing tired of being disrespected. She's furious about always being runner-up and second best and never getting to be number one in anybody's effing world. I'm effing tired of it. Now, Janet is the part that had to run the obstacle courses, and in doing so, placed if you're first place in the after party, whatever you want to call it, ritual that they did, you were a predator abusing others. And if you did not place number one, if you're second or below, you wound up being abused. So I realized that Janet was always second place. It wasn't until Slick, and Slick was the part that had to, Janet ran the obstacle courses, but Slick had to learn how to climb and navigate vertical surfaces. So Slick handled horizontal surfaces, or no, Janet handled horizontal surfaces, and Slick handled vertical surfaces. It wasn't until Slick took over that Slick got first place because they changed the obstacles and I had to, a new part was created and she did well. So Janet was screwed over all the time by her competition because Janet was nice. She respected them and did not cheat. She was ethical and just, and she always got screwed. Slick, the other part, realized that you have to focus on yourself to win, to shut out all the others and do what you do. Then she won. Janet plays fair and helps the other people out. To her detriment, they cheated and tricked her. She said, "To heck with that, I'm just going to," now this is Slick said, "To heck with that, I'm just going to ignore all of them and focus on me and what I can do." That freed up my mind. Smarty Pants, another part, was she's the IQ in me. That freed up my mind, smarty pants, to help me figure out clever ways to win. No cheating required. Also, not to help others or point out things to them. Let them figure it out on their own. So I spent the afternoon typing out show notes. I got them all done and I felt good about that. It occurred to me to go take a bath and try and relax. I was still angry. When I got in the water, I kept seeing myself beating the snot out of that torso. But I didn't want to get up out of the water. But I knew that I had to vent some anger. So I remembered John talked about wringing a towel out. So that's what I did. I twisted it as hard as I could for as long as I could. And I let myself yell and grunt and moan. Then I took it and started hitting the wall with it. Hitting a plastic wall, but it made the wall and the pipes rattle and it gave a nice loud sound. So I kept doing it, yelling for a while. Thank goodness my husband wasn't here. Then my crying abated a little bit, and I thought about going underwater. So I did. When I did, I stroked my hair back, and when I got to the crown of my head, I grabbed it and held it. At that moment, I remembered that I drowned people too. They would have a special tub slash bath full of blood and would holler, "Get the dunker, get the dunker." Executioner, who is another part, um, who did executions on stage, would come out and put on a show, and they would say, "Bring in the dead," or I would say, "Bring in the dead." I would say, swooping my arms and then throw down my cape. I had to put a show on after all. Dunker arrived, new part. I would take an infant or a baby or an adolescent and put them under the water and hold them under there. I drowned or almost drowned them. They were usually struggling, and the audience would tell me what they wanted me to do. Sometimes they would give a thumbs up or a thumbs down or just shout. I could let them live or I would kill them. And really this should be worded as the audience would tell me what they wanted me to do and I obeyed orders. Sometimes I would stand on their shoulders to hold them down, or I would just grab the top of their hair and just hold them down if they were small and let them splash around. They would get me all bloody. When I would stand on them, I would be bloody up to my thighs. At the end of the show, the audience would have me sit in a chair or lay down, and they would all come up and lick all the blood off my body. I forgot all about that. I had to allow it, or I would pay for disobedience. They would sometimes rape me too. Then afterwards, I got to have all of the sweets that I wanted to have. I could just stuff my face with all the candy and cake I wanted. I guess that made it all better. So disturbing. I asked Dunker how many. 63, he says, but only 37 of them died. 16 children and 21 adolescents. All of the others were 26 blood baptisms like I had when I was a baby, babies of wealthy families. File clerk, who is another part, who keeps track of records, says she keeps excellent records. So this is the evening now. Okay. Chris came home and told me that he had to get up at 3:30 to drive his boss to a station that's 2 hours away and then do a class. He did not drink. There was nothing on YouTube to watch. So I watched my session with Jon from Tuesday. Chris happened to see it while there was a sketch of me holding the dead baby in my arms and a knife in the other hand. He didn't say anything. He asked if he could see the journal that I had read from the other night we had the fight. I said, sure, and I got it and gave it to him. He read it for about an hour, I think. I was cooking dinner. When dinner was almost ready, he came into the kitchen and said he was sorry about what I had to go through. I said, thanks. Then he said something about, we just can't talk. I said, we are talking right now. Ironically, he was sober, but I didn't say anything. We hugged and went about our night. I looked in later and the journal, which was actually the parts map with all the parts printed out with their story, and it was not there. In the morning, I found it on my desk. I have no idea how far he read, but I suppose it was enough. I'm just glad he has a clue now. And the number for Fatty has changed. It's now 122. File clerk keeps telling me she keeps excellent records. That evening, I sketched some of the images I saw in the tub. Plus, Fatty's wall is breaking down, and she chose a name. Say new name. Felicity. She wanted a name that started with an F. So she came up with and chose Felicity. I like it too. It's happy. And that's kind of ironic with my parts is when they select a new name, generally it starts with the same initial or it's a scramble of their old name. Like Rocky His new name is Riley. So there's the R and the Y still in there. So I just always thought that was fascinating with the name. So I should show you the sketches. So this is May 15th. Sketches. View the details. Okay, so here's, oh dang it. Um, Merge icons. Okay. This was this was just a picture I wanted to show John. When I'm walking my dog, I would always walk past this thing, and someone had carved, you can see it underneath a sigil. And if you don't know what a sigil is, I'll show you some here. Oh, we go to Google Images. It is something that Satanists use for various different purposes. And they're all very, as you can see, very detailed and specific. Um, like I said, I really don't know what or how. I think Solomon has like, I don't know, a bunch of sigils and things like that, but Satanists use these. So as I'm walking my dog, I keep walking past the sigil, and I know it's a sigil because it's a pentagram. And as extensions off the points of the pentagrams are lines with those little squiggly marks, those little sigils. And every time I walked by it, I'd be mad. And I'm like, I don't want to walk past this. I don't want to look at it. Why is this okay? So one day I took a can of spray paint, painted over it. I put just Jesus over it. It was much smaller. Well, about a month later, the city came by with a power washer and washed the spray paint off. And in the process, he chipped away some of the sigil. And I noticed it, and I thought, well, gosh darn it, it's still here. So I took the can out again. I wrote Jesus much bigger. And because you could still see the edges of the sigil, I thought, you know what? I'm going to put a little heart around it. And it's still there to this day. The city has not taken it off. So whoever marked our neighborhood for Satanism and demonic whatever, I have claimed back again. So that happened last May. We are the neighborhood of, it's marked with Jesus now. And it's funny because as I'm walking the dog this past holiday season, Halloween and now Christmas, I noticed a difference is that the years before, not this year, but the years before, we had tons and tons and tons of people decorating for Halloween. Well, there was only about six houses this time. And same thing with Christmas, tons and tons and tons of Christmas decorations. I shouldn't say tons, but a lot of houses. But this year, there's again only about six or eight, the same six or eight houses. So what I do is I started walking past these Halloween decorations and I'd see them and I'd think, well, that's an open doorway for Satan to come. It's the Day of the Dead, Halloween, the Dia Estos, or I forget what that Spanish phrase is, but anyway, so now when I walk my dog, I say a prayer and I say, Dear Lord Jesus, please surround our neighborhood 5 miles in every direction from my home and encompass us with a bubble of your love. I said, please open the hearts and minds of everyone in this bubble, in this neighborhood, that they, will be drawn to you, will, increase their hunger for your word, make them good, godly people, do right, just things. Um, and I said, please, God, bind all the powers, principalities, and spiritual wickedness in all places, on all planes of existence. And the ones that are here in these houses that have these decorations, I said, surround them with an impenetrable shield where that demon can be in that home with them because they're obviously calling them to them. I said, but bind them to that property only. Even if someone comes and goes, that demon is bound to that property only. And I said, also, Father, make your loving, beautiful, godly neighborhood so uncomfortable for these demons or powers or principalities, and I also ask them to block all astral projection. So uncomfortable to them that they will want to leave and will leave. And when they leave their property, they have to go to hell. And I say, thank you, Lord Jesus. And so that's my prayer as I'm walking around the neighborhood with the dog. So anyway, I'll get off that. So here is the thing with Fatty is I did a sketch and that's all I put on there. Just Fatty. And then after that, it evolved into, well, okay, I understood that. Oh, shoot. How can I do this? It's not letting me adjust it. Gosh darn it. What's happening here? Anyway, as you can see, oh, shoot. I don't want that. Oh, there it goes. Okay. I realized, well, Fatty is the wall. She stuffs and stuffs and stuffs herself with all sorts of sweets and, junk food. She's a wall keeping me from going beyond this wall. And then that evolved. It's the same piece of paper evolved into this. As I was working with Jon, I realized, oh my goodness, the wall is starting to crack and fall apart. I guess it's not the exact same picture, it's a different one. But it expressed itself in these sketches that, okay, first there's Fatty, she's the wall, and now that wall's crumbling apart. And I thought that was cool. And then the next set of sketches, let's see. I don't have, oh, is this Dunker here? I think this is. Yeah. This is disturbing. I'm sorry, everybody. But you have people in chairs, clapping and and people in black robes assisting, and there's me standing on the shoulders of someone who I think is about the same age as me, and this guy I think is assisting me by holding me up or something, and I'm getting splashed all over the place. So this was one of their shows. This was entertainment for them. Very disturbing, and I put on there taking their life for us. And I just noticed this. Looks like a little face or something. I wonder if that was a demonic energy there. And yeah, oh, that's what this purple is they were like as this person was dying, they were like trying to draw it into themselves. That's right. That's what that was. So I guess I'll move that down a little bit, make that bigger so y'all can oh shoot, see this, move that over. And so they're all just, trying to suck in this life force of this person that I'm made to kill. And so is that one? I think so. Come on now. Turn it. It's basically the same thing, except me standing on them. I'm holding them, their face down, and I'm holding them down. And these people are trying to draw in the life force as this person dies. So this is Dunker. That's what they called it. Bring out the Dunker, because I would dunk the people. And now the other thing I realized later on was that the this place that I was at, I'll stop share for a second. The School Sisters of Notre Dame, we would go to these wealthy people's homes, and I realized that there was three different classes of people there. You had the wealthy people, and it was a school for girls, for wealthy girls. Then there was middle class people, which I was a part of, which really technically was lower middle class. We were trained to be their minions. And then there was a third class of people, which I guess, and I hate to use this word, I guess the brown skin people, and they weren't just brown skin, they were white people as well, or Asians. They were the throwaway children, the expendable children, the ones that didn't have families, were migrants without parents, orphans, people from CPS are taken by CPS, not put in the system and sent there. Well, the wealthy girls, they were trained how to be nasty perpetrators. The middle class were trained to be their minions, do their dirty work for them, and we were made to kill or torture or abuse the expendable children. So these three classes of society within this one place that I was trained, and because I had parents and I had a home, we didn't have tons of money. Now, I remember mom scraping by, with groceries and stuff. I think my dad squirreled away money somewhere, but that's what that was about. And so I was made to almost kill an elite child, usually an infant around the age of 3 weeks, like I was. And the idea there is that if you can get them to a state of death and bring them back or almost dying, that somehow it increases their psychic ability. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I've heard through various different stories and people talking about it. And it's supposedly also supposed to create that eye color, that autochromia. Anyway, I where they get in that death and reawakening, it changes their eye color, and you'll notice that auto. Let me see what that's called. Look on the internet. Heterochromia, something like that. Um, um, wait, we put two different eye colors. If I could spell, huh? Within one eye, not here it is, heterochromia. Yeah, heterochromia. It's where a person's eye color, let me see, maybe this has it in here good. Maybe two different that two each eye has two different colors, or within the eye itself, it has various different colors, if you can see this. That's not what I wanted to do. But you can see it here, how she has this different eye color. Um, there's some that I've seen. Oh, I didn't know Mila Kunis had that. Let's see if I can make that bigger. Oh, maybe so. Maybe so. But this is how they can spot people. Like here, you see these two, there's reddish brown and there's blue here. This is how they can spot people who are cult members because they know that they've had this thing done to them in infancy. And I have had it done, but my eyes don't look like this. I mean, look at this. I mean, would you want to have eyes like that? I don't know. And they say, "Oh, well, this makes them beautiful." You've got this yellowish and the blue and then the dark blue. They perceive this. I mean, then it is a pretty eye, but they perceive this as, beautiful. Oh, and this is something I wanted to talk to my counselor about, but I'll make record of it right here and now. I remember when my sister was little, I remember my mom talking about when my oldest sister Angie was little, that she had blue eyes one day and brown eyes the next. And I bet you she had a ceremony done, and that's what happened to her eyes. And also, mom told me that Angie went to bed with blonde hair one day and woke. Oh, here's a really good example. Do you see this? All these various different colors and the hazel eye. So this is prized in the world of Satanism. This, what is this called? Heterochromia, a beauty anomaly. So just wanted to let y'all know that's out there and it exists. So that's what the ceremony was, the dunking for the elite people. And if it wasn't, if there was no elite child available to do it, then they just wanted me to kill somebody so they could suck the energy out of their body, which is really quite disgusting. Anyway, so let me go to the next journal entry. This is May 17th, if it will open. Take a little sip of tea here. Okay. Yesterday, I was still feeling very depressed and lonely most of the day after my session with John. Lonnie was very present. Now, Lonnie is a part that you'll get to know in a moment. Then last night, Chris came into the kitchen to talk with me. He said he wanted to tell me that he thought I was brave and courageous for doing what I was doing. He respected what I was doing. He told me he respected John too. I asked him how far he got reading through the journal. He said, far enough. I think it was about a third of the way through. And then later on, he told me about the army entry and that I had told him the army entry and that I had told him about that before. So I know he got at least that far, and that means that I was 8, and that means I was 18. So he read all the childhood stuff. He said that he was okay just being angry with his stuff, but that his path would not be the same as mine. I think it was his way of trying to tell me he was not going into counseling. He must have told me how 4 different times how much he respected what I was doing and thought I was brave and courageous. Each time I said thank you. Anyway, that made me feel better. Also, he has let me kiss his lips almost every day for 3 days now. Just little pecks, but they're actually on the lips, so that's really nice because Chris doesn't like face-to-face interaction. So when I kiss him, I tend to kiss his cheek and his neck, and I kiss all over and get my little lovin's that way. Says that all day today, my throat, exterior, and shoulders and neck have been hurting. I said, well, I'm sorry. I'll just say this. I'll have to tell her some this. Plus, I'm annoyed about Melissa in the interview. But what kept really going through my mind was when my mom died and I called her because I wanted someone to talk to. She put me off the entire day. For days, actually. She told me he was with her aunt at some luncheon. I really felt blown off and not valuable enough for her time. Aren't we friends? That's really been going through my head all day. She could have went to the bathroom or walked outside and given me 5 or 10 minutes of her day, but she didn't, or the next few days, and that really hurt my feelings. She brought it up and said that she was sorry once, but I said, don't worry about it. I felt you there with me, only because I kept wishing she would call. I should have told her that I felt really disrespected and not worthy of her time and hurt, but I didn't. I should talk to her about it. But I really don't know how to go about doing that without being bitchy or projecting. Sorry, so this I had to copy and paste this from one document to another, and it's got weird formulas in it. I also kept thinking about 5 or 6 different crises she's had over the past couple of years, and she calls me and vents, and I listen. I give her suggestions or try to help. Lots of drama there, but I don't get the same thing in return. I don't get to call her. She calls me, and it's based on a scheduled time. A text, perhaps, but everything is on her time. And I just want to interject here. All of this stuff has been worked out with my friend here, but I was venting. Mine is irrelevant. I'm always put off. Her time is just so pretty. And this is a part venting here. It's not the conscious me. Mine is irrelevant. I'm always put off. Her time is just so preoccupied with all the things she has to do. It's all just so important in God's work, Alan's legacy. So F you, Diana, you're just second string, not important. And that's how my part felt. I kept thinking about talking to her and letting her know how I feel and that perhaps I'm projecting and then tell her my stuff, but that's not really being truthful. I feel so desperate for a friend that I have to, and this is Lonnie. I feel so desperate for a friend that I have to put up with bullshit. I shouldn't have to. I should be loved and respected in the same way that I've loved and respected those people. But I never get that in return. I'm always the better person. I feel like I'm a doormat, but if I blow everybody off, then there's no one in my life. I guess I have to put up with disrespect and bullshit all the time, and I don't want to. Do I bring this on by being nice? Perhaps. But a person's conscience should kick in, but it never does for me. I'm just expendable, secondary. Then I lay down to go to sleep and I remembered this, more details about that day. I remember the day that Lonnie was born. Dad had set up Mom to go shopping and sent her on a wild goose chase so he could be alone with me, Angie, and Mary. I remember asking Mom, begging Mom if I could go with her. Can I please go with her? I put up a big fuss. Oops. Dad was having an attitude about this and refusing to let Mom take me with her. Mom even tried to persuade him. What's the big deal? Why not? Dad says he never gets time with us, so no, this is his time. I started crying, saying, Mom, I don't want to be with Dad. I want to go with you. Dad would not allow me to go with her. Mom eventually left. He took us down into the basement. He told Angie and Mary to go play in their area. He took me to his work area. I'll just interject here real quick. And when you see this session after this, you'll see that the session starts about 30 or 45 minutes in where I'm reading this to John. And it didn't record. I had forgot to hit the record button. So sorry about that. But I thought, well, you'll hear me reading it here and now. Um, he took me into his work area. He tied my hands up to the pole and then tied my neck up to the pole. He was scolding me for behaving the way I was, telling Mom that I didn't want to be with him. He says, now you're going to pay for that. That somehow I was letting Mom know being with Dad was a problem, and that couldn't happen. I'm standing there tied up, and the next thing I know, Dad zaps me with a cattle prod from behind. That's new. He's proud of himself because he got a new toy. My head flung forward. The rope hurt my throat. He did it again, and my knees buckled. I began to slide down, and as I did, the rope did not slide freely, so I was being choked on the way down. That really hurt a lot. I was almost on my butt. I remember gasping for air. Then I saw Angie and Mary poke their heads around the curtain. Dad shouted for them to get back in their area and keep themselves busy. They were gone. Each time he zapped me, my teeth slammed shut, and you could hear it. It was quite loud. Then he stuffed a rag in my mouth. As I was sitting on the floor with the rope high above the back of my head, it was still choking me. I was gasping for air. He came over and adjusted the rope. Then he zapped me again, and my head flung back onto the pole quite hard. He said, that'll teach you for causing trouble, even though Mom had no idea what I was trying to say. He always kept her distracted and frustrated with nonsense. Then Dad sat at his workbench for a while reading through something. I think the instructions for the cattle prod. I could hear Angie and Mary playing, and I started to cry. As that happened, my nose filled up, and because my mouth was filled with a rag, I couldn't breathe. I gasped again and again. Dad got up annoyed and wiped my nose off. He said if I didn't cry, this wouldn't happen. So stop crying. So I cried silently, and my nose filled up again. My head was hanging down. I didn't care if I died. Perhaps I should. Then it would stop. My jaw hurt in the back, and right now as I'm reading this, I feel some soreness in my jaw. My jaw hurt in the back of my head hurt, and my throat hurt where the rope was choking me. I had been shocked 3 times. My body felt shaky and weak. I vomited and I was gasping again. Dad took out the rag. I had to be quiet. I felt so hopeless and helpless, and I knew no one was going to help me, that I had to just wait it out again. Like all the other stuff, Lonnie is so lonely and alone and sad. Mom got home and Angie and Mary ran upstairs. Dad untied me, cleaned my face, and sent me upstairs as well. He told me to tell Mom that Angie, Mary, and I were playing a game with our jump ropes, and for some reason I wanted to wrap it around my neck and see how long I could stand it to be hung by it. That's what I told her. Angie and Mary shook their heads in agreement. As Mom was about to tend to me, Dad had Mom so distracted and flummoxed looking for a part he wanted, and then having to explain why she didn't have it, couldn't find it, no one had it, and they argued about it. She didn't really have time to give any attention to me. Lonnie was alone and sad again. What happened there was my dad, I realized that he had made up some sort of part that he needed, and since she only got the car on the weekends, he sent her on a wild goose chase going from hardware store to hardware store to hardware store to chew up time to finally go grocery shopping, which you want to do, and then come home. Um, Lonnie was alone inside again. I went to the bathroom, silently cried in a towel. Angie Mary went outside. Then Dad told me to get out of there and sent me to play outside too. I was still effed up, but I had to pretend to be happy and play. My neck was bruised the next few days. Mom said how stupid I was to play such a dumb game. Now Mom thought badly of me too. I was stupid. No one to love me or help me ever, just alone, in pain. I got to stay home from school until my neck cleared up. I had a hard time swallowing too. Mom said Dad thought it must be a cold or my lymph nodes, that my nose was running Saturday when I was with him too. Dad just snickered at that. He told her how stupid she was to not see that. What kind of a mother is she? All thought of the rope game was now out the window. Now it's just a cold or flu. Mary always said Mom was dumb. Angie and Mary were silent. Dad would put his fingers to his mouth and look at them. Mom would be conflicted all the time, but she cared for me when we were at home together during the school days. I liked that part. It was nice to just watch TV all day and play Barbies. I recall doing my schoolwork at home. Angie would bring it. And I didn't want to get behind, did I? I kept my grades up. So 519. So today I've been stuck on the idea that I have to tell Melissa all the ways she has wronged me. This is my part here, Lonnie, that I am a better friend than she is. I kept thinking of bringing up the fact she blew me off when I called her when my mom died, how she turned the My History interview into her and her agenda. But I kept thinking, no, this is not right. I don't want to alienate her. I don't want to say that it's all her fault. I was feeling on the edge of tears again. I have a certain responsibility too. I told her it was okay, didn't I? When she told me that I have a great ability to be adaptable during an interview, I said thanks. Still, I wanted to make her wrong. I wanted to make everyone wrong. And if y'all don't know, Melissa's my current friend now. Angie called this morning too. Angie always talking about herself. It's never about me. But how can it be? What I'm going through, she can't face. So it has to be about her. I'm not able to talk with her about this ever, or Chris. Again, it's just me. But we do have Jon. Yeah, but we pay him. So basically, we have no one to confide in except the person we pay. But at least he's there. Otherwise, you'd be completely alone. Now you are not. So this is two or three parts talking to each other. So I went out and beat up Ted. I beat on him for a long time. I kept remembering being tied to that pole. How dare Dad put me in that position? How dare Dad put Angie and Mary in their position? I was mad at all of them. Mom, too. She should have just taken me with her. No one was helping me, just me, all alone, as always. Just suck it up and deal. Then I remembered all the other friends that have blown me off. Diana Monroe telling me she can't share in my happiness and ghosted me after 8 years of friendship. Me doing most of the work the last 3 years. And this was when I met Chris, my husband at the time, my boyfriend. And she knew I really loved him. And she stopped being my friend. She said, I just can't share in your happiness. Can you imagine a person you think is your best friend? You get a boyfriend and they stop being your friend because they don't want to share in your happiness. Well, right then I knew she's not really my friend. And Raphael, who was a roommate I had in Texas, is a gay man. And Raphael moving out within 30 days of me telling him I was going to move in 6 months. We were friends and lived together for 3 years. Man, did that F me up. He ghosted me too. And the story with that was I had remembered the sexual abuse. I was in like my early mid 20s, I think, and I had confronted my dad, and I realized, well, if I'm going to try and heal any sort of relationship, I got to be in the same city with them and my family, and I wanted to start addressing things. And so I said, well, Raphael, and he knew what was going on. I said, I'm going to be moving back to Milwaukee in about 6 months was the plan. I was going to go in spring. It was the fall, the beginning of fall. And he, after like 30 days, made arrangements, transferred his job, moved to Florida in 30 days. So I had to scramble because, I couldn't afford this two-bedroom apartment on my own and blah, blah, blah. So I was really pissed off. So I realized, well, you're not really my friend either. And then Sherry Bueller in Iowa, how she got the entire school to ostracize me all over a stupid guy. Everyone ghosted me. How dare all of them? I was a good friend to her too. They all just F me over. F all of them. Still beating up Ted and crying. I wanted to stop because I was crying. I wanted to stop, but because I was crying, I kept at it. Then I remembered how I ghosted Christine Van Meter in high school. She was a good friend, and I just ghosted her. So one part that feels like she doesn't have friends is starting to trigger all these different interactions I've had throughout my life with friends. She was a good friend, and I just ghosted her. I had started working and was in a different world. I didn't think she would approve. Plus, that girl in kindergarten, the one that had cancer and died, we were friends. But I didn't know how to handle someone dying being that young. Plus, I had all the other shit to deal with Dad, and that too. It was too much. I was told to go play with her and keep being friends. I just couldn't. I didn't know how to face that. I ghosted her. I had seen too much death already. I didn't want to watch it slowly play out. And with someone I liked. I always felt guilty about that. I felt guilty about Christine, too. I used to see her in the hall in school after that. She always looked kindly at me. She was never mean. I looked away because I felt ashamed of how I ghosted her. I always hoped she forgave me for that, but she had all of her other friends and generations of being in that town. She was just fine. She eventually married Dwayne Adams and they had a family and their own farm life. Then I remembered Lonnie tied to that post. She believed that she didn't deserve to be helped because of all the horrible things she had done. She deserved to be alone and lonely and for no one to help her. She had killed many people by then. Then Little Killer jumped in and said, I know what you mean. I had to kill those kittens and I loved them. How could anyone love me? I'm so bad. Plus, just last year, I had to kill those kittens from the stray cat in the backyard. And now there are some in the front yard again. I'm just going to let them grow up and move on. I don't have to kill them in order to control the stray cat population. Let God take care of that. Then Scar jumped into action, all of us hitting Ted. She said that she understood all of us, that how could God love her at all for slicing open that baby and killing it? That God would never love her ever. She was so bad. Then I remembered it was after that I was sent up to the next ritual where Jesus came into my body and scattered off all the witches. Jesus was telling me that he did love me and would love me forever, but I didn't, wouldn't, or couldn't believe that. And that's why I never remembered my baptisms or anything having to do with him throughout my life. I couldn't accept his love because I didn't think I was worthy of it. I also didn't even try to find out about him. Why? Why he would just reject me anyway. I've got a knock on the door, so I'm going to pause. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, I had to deal with someone at the door. A little flummoxed right now. I gotta remember where I was. Okay. Um, so I couldn't accept, so Jesus was telling me that he did love me and would love me forever, but I didn't, wouldn't, or couldn't believe that, and that's why I never remembered my baptisms. Did I share? Gosh darn it. I'm sorry, I'm still a little flummoxed. Yeah, let me share. But I didn't, wouldn't, or couldn't believe it, and that's why I never remembered my baptisms or having anything to do with him throughout my life. I couldn't accept his love because I didn't think I was worthy of it. I also didn't even try to find out about him, why he would just reject me. So I looked away from him, and that's why whenever I do have friends, that I do go out of my way to be a better person, so I can make up for all the bad stuff that I've done, and hopefully God will see it and love me, because otherwise I can't be loved. I've done too much bad stuff. I allow people to treat me badly without saying anything as a way to punish myself, to pay for the bad things, to work for their love, because I have offended God by what I have done. Perhaps this way he will see that I am good and then love and accept me. Once I realized that, the tears stopped. I realized that it was the perps in each situation that made me feel that way by making me do these horrible things. That I took on their knapsacks and punished myself. I know that I would never do those things ever in a million years. They made me, but because of it, I made myself less important, not worthy of respect or love or even the time of day, or even to know God. Now I know that it was not me, it was them. It is they who deserve hell, not me. I know that I don't have to talk to Melissa and have her feel bad for those things. That's on her. All I need to do going forward is let her know when I feel put off and that it hurts me to correct things as they happen and ask for what I want. I don't have to point the finger at her or anyone and say, you are bad. She's just living her life, and it is I who have allowed those things. Going forward, I just don't allow those things that I don't like, or I speak up and say what I would prefer or prefer to be different. So that's good now. I feel better. Scar and Little Killer want new names. Sarah and Catherine is what they like. My neck and throat is still sore. So I will close that out. And here's the thing is I watched the session before I came to figure out which journal entries to read, and I noticed you can see a line around my neck, the bruising. So I took some screenshots of it to send to Jon because he's collecting different body memory things to prove to some, I don't know who he's proving it to, that it does exist, that it's real. So I'll go to the next journal entry, May 20th. So yesterday I somehow hurt my knee again. It's the same knee I hurt about a year ago. Then in February, when I was helping Melissa at her house, it got sore there and it has been sore ever since. But yesterday it got worse and I had to put a knee brace on again, which it took me an entire day to remember that I had. Even though I was looking, it was funny, even though I was looking at it in the cupboard and it was right there in front of me, it took me an entire day to remember I bought one and it was sitting there. I was limping around all day. Anyway, in the morning I went out and beat up Ted and had a lot of realizations there that is in the previous entry. But early this morning, I was having a dream about royalty for some reason. I thought that was odd. It was literally William and Kate and Harry and Meghan. Chris is in the dream with Dixie, and we were walking somewhere in town. I wanted to get ahead, so I hurried up across the street. Chris got stuck at the light, so was far behind me. But as I was getting ahead, I was really working hard physically, but I was really moving very slow in the physical world to the point where they were able to cross the street after the traffic and Dixie caught up with me and Chris was nearby. Then I woke up wondering about this royalty business. Dream, which is a part, is trying to tell me something, but I don't know what it is. So because my knee was bad, I decided to not exercise today. Sarge was not too happy about that, but accepted it. She didn't want it to get any worse. She went silent about exercise this week. So I decided to take a shower so that I could have nice hair today, so that when I talk to Scott later on Zoom, I could be presentable. I turned the shower on and realized, no, why not go take a bath? So I turned it off and went to the bathtub and filled it up and got in. I got to thinking about the Barbie airplane that Mom bought me. Correction, that I thought Mom bought me. But it wasn't Mom, it was Dad that bought it for me. Remembering back, I think that's strange because he never does anything like that. And Jon says, when does a psychopath person do something good? I remembered my sisters being pissed off because they didn't get anything. Dad said to Mom, just tell her it's an early birthday present. He brought it home in the evening and gave it to her, and she held it back until the next morning and gave it to me. I was home from school sick that day and the next. I was really excited when he brought it home. Then I was thinking about how I used to always play with that, and Barbie and Ken would always be naked, laying on top of each other, and the bonfires that I had made for them and made with real matches. Why? I think I talk about this in the journal, so you hear it then. Then it occurred to me, or rather, I had a memory of being inside of a plane as a child, and that plane was going to Chicago. It was a small private plane. Then it occurred to me that that's probably why Dad bought me that Barbie airplane so that I could get accustomed to the inside of a plane and therefore be comfortable being in a real plane. I also got to thinking about Chicago and how it is so close to Milwaukee because you can drive to Chicago in 90 minutes. A private airplane would probably only take 15 minutes max. No idea. So as I was thinking about that, I started seeing playhouses, small, out-of-the-way playhouses where Dad and I went. And yes, Dad was in the plane with me. I think the first time he was made to stay on the plane and wait for me, provided with a hooker to pass the time, and then we flew back together. But after that, he made a deal with who was, I think, my handler, so that he could go with us, but that he had to remain backstage and could not mingle with the audience who were very important people. As I was laying there, I was thinking about the stage and the curtain and the plays where my altars, which technically should be that our killers would go and perform. And it occurred to me that perhaps some of the people's homes that I went to, perhaps they were royalty. I have no idea who these people were. Maybe that's what the dream was about. So I got to thinking about the different plays that were put on. Anyway, that's where my memories took me. It was Finnegan, Jonathan, Executioner, and Sailor. Some of the killings took place in these playhouses, and some also occurred in the homes of wealthy people in Milwaukee and Chicago. Like nowadays, people have those home theaters. Back then, wealthy people had indoor theaters, literally. So as I'm laying there in the tub, I'm remembering that some Shakespearean plays were enacted. I know in the actual play Hamlet that the royalty in the show arranges with the players to alter the story to suit the king and queen. And so that's what occurred here as well. Whoever was putting on this play altered it to suit their whims or to satisfy their audience. Perhaps it was to condition or program their audience in demonic ways. Anyway, I began to see different plays that were put on. I remember my handler, along with Dad, was teaching me that, quote, you're going to see the little people, that's what they called the children, out there with knives and guns, and they're going after the king and queen. And that I was a soldier for the king and queen, and it was my job to go out there and protect them and kill those people. That we were in a war, and I needed to protect the king and queen with everything that I had. And the handler and Dad would give me the code words and signals with their hands until they were certain and I knew what I was doing. I remember going out there on stage and going after the little people who had knives and guns, and yes, they were aiming them at the king and queen. But looking at it now, I realized they were fake weapons. But I had a real knife, and I was sent out there to slit the throats of all those little people. And so in the world of loyalty, the little people were the minions, the fighters, soldiers, the normal people, the peasants. But these psychopaths used actual little people, children. In one of these plays, I believe I was made to kill 4 or 5 children by slicing their throats. It was Slick that had to come out and weave around to catch them because once I killed the first child, all the others scattered and ran. They weren't allowed to go backstage or offstage because there were people there to prevent that, and so I had to chase them down like chickens and ultimately slice their throats. Slick also twisted her knee on a prop, the very same one that hurts me now, but her injury healed very quickly. Once it was done, the audience erupted with applause and raved and was just very excited. The bodies were taken away and prepared and put on tables for them to eat and drink the blood. Then an orgy happened in another room. That's where the electric sailor was brought out from time to time as well. Finnegan was the one called out to cut the throats. He was utilized during the Shakespearean plays. I believe it was Henry V in particular. They also did Titus, which is particularly bloody. And it's funny because in my 20s, as I learned Shakespearean plays, Henry V became one of my favorites. It was actually one that I used to play a lot at night and that I would fall asleep to it, which is crazy because there's a lot of war and death and killing and noise. But for some reason, I was able to fall asleep to it. And I realize now I was triggering a part, the Henry V part, but because it was a different personality triggering it, an unauthorized personality, that's what put me to sleep because I wasn't supposed to remember. I remember there being another play about the French Revolution, and that's where the guillotine was on stage. Again, it was Dad and this handler, who I think was a handler for Dad as well as a handler for me. And that's what the executioner did. Executioner was also a killer, and file clerk is screaming at me right now that there were 63 beheadings executioner did, 6 adults and 57 children. These were mostly plays about the French Revolution. I also remember that there were other plays performed as well, and they were Bible stories. That these Satanists were mocking God in the Bible and enacted different stories out of the Bible. And that's where Jonathan was utilized. I believe they used that story of the Bible that John, my counselor, was telling me about, where the good guys in the Bible were beheading the bad guys, David and Goliath and his friend Jonathan. Except in this stage play, they altered it so that it was the opposite somehow. When I realized that, my jaw just dropped to the floor. John would tell me that very story, and that was one of the plays where I was made to kill people. So yes, there were plane rides to Chicago, and in Chicago is where there would be plays performed in playhouses. Milwaukee was where we were in mansions. I was the person who was made to do the killings so that the psychopaths and pervs would not get their own hands dirty. That's what I was trained to be, their killer. I had become known to those people in Chicago because of the work I had done in Milwaukee. I remember Dad being very invigorated and enlivened at the prospect of going to Chicago and interacting with even more important people. It occurs to me that perhaps Dream, my part, was telling me that there was royalty involved there. I don't know, but that's what happened there. I also recently saw the movie Barbie. It's got a lot going on in there, but it occurred to me that all those different Barbies and all those different accessories, like the airplane, the Jeep, the boat, the this, the that, it occurred to me that maybe the company Mattel was also part of the psychopathic worldwide pedophilic insanity, and that's why they created all these different alters of Barbies so that the Barbies and their accessories could be used to train and condition children. And then I looked up the plays about the French Revolution. There's not many. This is the one that seems to match. And I go through this in the session with John, except I think this was altered to show how traitors, the one who saved potential victims, were executed, et cetera, et cetera. So I don't want to be too redundant and have, the journal and the session be the same thing over and over, but I thought that y'all might like to, and the reason I'm putting the sessions up, because at this point in time, I had never considered airing our sessions. I just wanted to have them for me to be able to rewatch them and maybe learn. Maybe I didn't get it while John was talking to me, but get it later on. It wasn't until, geez Louise, I think September, October, I decided there's just so much that goes on in these sessions. I think people would be could learn from it, could get something from it, and that's when I decided to air them. So, um, those are the journals. Let me close this and stop share. And I think that's probably been an hour. I try to make these like an hour, not too much longer, because the sessions are anywhere from 1 to 3 hours. And I like to keep the cat's heads under 15 minutes. So I think I'll end off today. And thank you everyone for listening. Again, if you see this shirt next week, it's because I'm going to do another recording later today. So, and I keep being self-conscious of my clothing because I don't buy clothing for looks. I buy clothing for comfort. So you'll always see me in something baggy or comfortable. I just can't tolerate tight. I can't even tolerate bras. And so you guys are lucky that I wear bras for you most of the time if I remember. And if you notice, I'm sorry. Sometimes I don't, but it's just I don't like them. I don't like feeling confined and tight. And that's because I have a part that was it was put into a deprivation tank, except to go in that tank, they had to make a suit for me, which was made specifically for my body because the idea in a deprivation tank is for you to have no sensory awareness. So if you've got on something that doesn't fit you or a wetsuit or something with zippers and things, you feel it. So what they do is they create like I'm not sure what it was made of. It's like some sort of plasticine plastic that was flexible and it was painted on wet. And I was painted from head to toe, with just an opening for my mouth to breathe. And as it dried, it started I guess not shrinking because it fit, but anyway, I don't like tight clothing. My parts don't like tight clothing. So anyhow, I'll let y'all go. God bless you. I wish you a good week. Um, I guess I'll say this prayer. I say it every night now. So, dear Lord Jesus, please watch over and protect all those oppressed on the planet right now. All those who are scared, lonely, tired, hungry, parched, terrorized, tortured, in despair, injured in war zones, suffering. Everyone, please, Father, protect them, help them to survive. As they survive, help them to grow. As they grow, help them to remember. As they remember, help them to heal. As they heal, help them to remember that you were there and that's why they survived. And as they remember that, they realize that you were and are their warrior. And as they realize that, they become your warrior, just as you did for me. So I pray all of you safety and love. Bind all powers, principalities, spiritual wickedness in all places on all planes of existence. Block all astral projection from you, your homes, and your family. And God give you strength and courage doing this. And so if anybody wants, well, contact me through email. Let's get to know each other. Let's talk. We can help each other. Um, I'd really like that. Lonnie, my lonely part without any friends, wants more friends. So anyway, just want to put that out there. God bless you. I love you and have a great day and a great week. See you next time.
Round and round, what comes